It started somewhere around 10:45 p.m., the kind of late where the sky feels heavier and the road looks longer than it should. Me and my friend Mason were driving back home after spending the weekend at his cousin's place in Oklahoma. The trip was supposed to be simple. Straight highway, some energy drinks, and whatever playlist kept us awake enough to talk trash about each other. The first hour went by normally. A few cars passed, some semis, the usual. I wasn't paying much attention to anything behind us until I noticed a pair of headlights that seemed to stay in the same spot every time I glanced at the rearview mirror. It wasn't close, but it wasn't far either. Just this steady pair of lights floating behind us in the dark. At first, I didn't say anything. Cars followed each other on highways all the time. It wasn't that weird. But after another half hour, those headlights were still glued to us. Same distance, same position, same dim flicker in the right headlight. "Yo," I finally said. "That van behind us, it's been there forever." Mason looked over his shoulder. "Maybe he's just going our way. Chill." I tried. I really did. But something about that old white cargo van, the kind with no windows in the back, bothered me. It looked worn down, maybe even dented, but because it stayed so far behind, I couldn't be sure. I slowed down a little just to see if it would pass. The van slowed too. I sped up. The van sped up. Mason didn't say anything the first time, but after the second time, he shifted in his seat and muttered, "Okay. Yeah, that's weird." I kept pretending it wasn't a big deal, but every time I looked into the rearview mirror, the van was there, shadowing us through every curve of the interstate. The road was basically empty. There was no reason for it to sit behind us for that long. No reason it couldn't just pass. The air inside the car changed, like the silence got tighter. Around midnight, we hit one of those lonely gas stations off a quiet exit. I pulled in, and honestly, my plan was simple. If the van kept going straight, everything was fine. If it followed us into the gas station, then it meant something else entirely. We parked by the storefront, under one of the buzzing yellow lights. For a moment, the highway looked completely empty. Then the headlights appeared at the top of the ramp. The van turned off and rolled slowly into the lot. It stopped at the far end, facing toward us. The engine stayed running. No one got out. I couldn't see the driver clearly, but from the glow of the dash, there was definitely someone sitting there, not moving, not adjusting anything, just watching. "Bro, what do we do?" Mason whispered. "We act normal," I said, even though I barely believed it myself. We went inside the store, trying not to look like two guys freaking out. But every time I looked through the glass door, the van was still there, still facing us, still idling. When we walked back out, it felt like the night got colder. We got into the car fast. I pulled out and headed toward the on-ramp, praying that when I checked the mirror, I wouldn't see anything. But the van pulled out too. Back onto the interstate, back behind us. Same distance as before. By now, I wasn't even pretending it was normal. "We're calling the cops," I said. Mason tried. The call dropped. Tried again. Dropped again. We were deep in dead zone territory. Finally, after maybe 40 minutes of battling the signal, he got through to a local dispatcher and explained everything. They told us to meet an officer at the next rest stop. We stayed on the phone for as long as the signal allowed, which wasn't long at all. The call cut off about 5 minutes later, and right around then, the van did something that made my stomach twist. Its headlights turned off, nothing but darkness behind us, except for the faint silhouette of that boxy van drifting at the edge of our taillight glow. It didn't speed up. It didn't back off. It stayed right there, matching everything we did with this unnatural patience that made my skin crawl. "That's not normal," Mason whispered. "Yeah," I said quietly. "I know." When the rest stop finally came into view, it looked like the last place on Earth you'd want to be stranded at night. A small lot, trees surrounding it like they were hiding something, a single vending machine glowing under a dim light. No cars, no officer. I pulled in but kept the engine running. The van rolled in behind us. No headlights, no hurry. It parked across the lot, angled toward us like it wanted us to know it wasn't finished yet. Through the windshield, I could see the outline of a person sitting perfectly still, not leaning forward, not fidgeting, just sitting, facing us like they were waiting for something. Minutes dragged by. 5, 7, 10. Every second felt like a weight pressing against my chest. My hand hovered over the gear shift, ready to floor it. Then headlights appeared from the road, a sheriff's cruiser pulling into the lot. The second it did, the van's headlights flashed on, and it tore out of there so fast it almost hit the curb. The officer whipped around to try and follow, but by the time he reached the exit, the van was already gone, swallowed back into the darkness of the highway like it had never been there at all. We gave statements for nearly an hour. The officer never got the plate number either. Too dark, too fast. He told us he'd escort us to a nearby town and recommended we stay there for the night. He didn't have to tell us twice. We got a motel room and ended up staying awake until sunrise because neither of us could sleep. Every car door outside made us jump. We finished the trip the next day in broad daylight, taking a different route home. For weeks afterward, every time I saw a white cargo van on the road, my whole body tensed up. Sometimes I still think about how long that van followed us, how deliberate it was, how patient, and the part that haunts me most isn't what happened. It's what didn't. Because whatever that person wanted, they weren't done until the moment they had to disappear. We were somewhere in northern New Mexico when everything went wrong. My family had been driving all day. Me, my mom, my dad, and my little sister Emily. We were supposed to reach our hotel by 9 p.m., but a rock slide shut down the main highway and forced everyone onto this weird detour the GPS insisted would only add 15 minutes. 15 minutes turned into an hour, then an hour and a half. The road kept getting thinner, rougher, emptier. No cars ahead of us, no cars behind us, just desert, stretching out forever on both sides, and a single cracked two-lane road leading us deeper into nowhere. My dad kept checking the GPS like it was malfunctioning, recalculating. "This thing's confused," he muttered, "but it says there's a small town coming up. We'll just stop there, regroup a bit." The sky was dark by then, the kind of darkness you only get in places miles from civilization. Even the stars felt dimmer. Emily had fallen asleep, my mom looked half awake, and I kept looking out the window feeling this weird heaviness in my stomach, like the road itself didn't want us there. About 30 minutes later, we finally saw lights, not bright ones, just a dim orange glow hanging over a cluster of buildings ahead. The GPS cheerfully announced the name of a town none of us had ever heard of. As we pulled in, something felt off right away. The gas station had all its lights on, the pumps lit up the parking lot. But there were no cars, no pedestrians, no clerk inside, not even a single moth around the bulbs. Every window in every building we drove past was illuminated, but we never saw any movement. Houses had cars in the driveways, laundry lines hung outside, porch lights glowing. Yet everything felt frozen, like whatever lived here had simply stepped away 5 minutes before we arrived. "Okay, this place is creeping me out," Mom whispered. Dad tried to laugh it off. "Small towns can be quiet. People go to bed early." But none of the streetlights were on when we drove in. Then, as we went deeper, they turned on one by one behind us. Click, 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 lighting up the street only after we'd already passed it. Dad slowed down. "You guys seeing this?" The farther we went, the more wrong it felt. Every house looked lived in, but nothing inside moved. Curtains sat perfectly still. No shadows, no music, no barking dogs, no insects buzzing, not even wind. It was like a movie set, built to look alive, but missing the actors. Dad pulled into an empty diner parking lot. All the lights inside were on, stools lined perfectly at the counter, plates and cups neatly arranged on the tables, but not a single person was in sight. He tried the door. Locked. "Okay," he said quietly, returning to the car. "We're turning around, we'll drive back the way we came." He punched a new route into the GPS. It recalculated and told us to go forward, straight into the center of town. He ignored it and went the opposite direction instead. 5 minutes later, we reached the center of town again. Dad's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "No way, I know I turned around," Mom whispered. "Maybe you took the wrong street?" So he tried again. Different turn, different road. Same result. Every route looped us back to the center like the streets were rearranging behind us. The air felt heavy now. Emily woke up crying without knowing why. I didn't blame her. Something was wrong with this place on a level I couldn't explain. Dad pulled over and shut off the engine to think, but immediately Mom said, "Turn it back on. Please just keep it running." He did. The town was completely silent, not normal silence, dead silence, like the world was holding its breath. Then, faintly at first, we heard something. The low rumble of an engine. A pair of headlights appeared at the far end of the main road, getting closer, slow, heavy, a tow truck, old, rusted, covered in dust. It pulled into the street and stopped about 50 feet away from us, facing us directly. The cabin lights never turned on. We couldn't see the driver at all. Dad whispered, "Maybe he can help." But none of us wanted him to roll the window down. The truck revved once, loud and rough, then began rolling forward. Not fast, not threatening, just moving. As it passed by us, the driver never looked at us, never acknowledged us, never slowed down. The truck continued down the road, then turned out of town and kept going. Dad stared. Maybe he knows the way out. He pulled onto the road and followed from a distance. The truck didn't speed up or slow down, just kept driving at the exact same pace as if guiding us. The moment we crossed the town limits, every light behind us shut off at once, like someone cut the power to the entire place. We followed the truck another 20 minutes until it reached a crossroads. It didn't signal, didn't stop. It simply turned onto another road and continued without looking back. Our GPS recalculated again, and for the first time in hours, gave us a normal route back to the highway. Dad didn't follow the tow truck. He didn't even look at where it went. He just took the road that led us away. No one spoke for the rest of the drive. When we finally reached our hotel, Dad asked the clerk if he'd heard of the town we got stuck in. The guy frowned and said it didn't exist. Not anymore. Abandoned after a chemical spill decades ago. But the lights were all on, Mom insisted. Everything looked lived in. "There hasn't been power out there for years," the clerk replied. "Locals don't go near that place." We didn't ask any more questions. We didn't want any answers. And whatever guided us out of that town that night, whatever was behind the wheel of that tow truck, we never saw it again. But sometimes, when I think back to that moment it passed us in the street, I wonder if it was trying to help us, or if it was just showing us the way out before the town decided to close in around us for good. We were 3 hours into a late-night drive when I realized something was wrong with the man on the side of the road. It was around 1:30 a.m. Me and my older brother Marcus were heading home after visiting our grandparents 2 states over. The highway was empty, nothing but trees and fields for miles. Marcus was half asleep in the passenger seat, and I was doing everything I could to stay awake. Cold air blasting, music low, eyes burning. Then I saw him. A man standing on the shoulder. No car around him, no bags, no hazard lights, nothing. Just him. His clothes looked normal, jeans, jacket, but he was standing too still. Most stranded people pace or wave their arms, try to flag someone down. This guy just stood there, one hand raised slowly like he expected us to stop. I eased over slightly, giving him space as we passed. I only saw him for a second under the headlights, but something about his posture made my stomach tighten. It was the way his head tilted, like he was already watching us long before we got close. When we passed him, he suddenly shouted something, a single word. My name. I slammed the brakes for a split second out of pure shock before pulling myself together and speeding back up. "Did you hear that?" I yelled. Marcus sat up instantly. "Hear what?" "He said my name. He yelled my name." Marcus frowned. "Bro, how would he know your name?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My hands were white-knuckled around the wheel, and my heart was pounding so hard it felt like my ribcage was vibrating. For the next few miles, I kept checking the mirrors, half expecting to see him behind us somehow. Nothing was there, just darkness. "We're pulling off at the next open place," Marcus said. "You're freaking out. You need a break." About 20 minutes later, a small 24-hour diner appeared on the side of the road. We pulled in, sat inside, ordered coffee, and tried to calm down, but I couldn't shake it. The man knew my name. I'd never seen him in my life. While we waited for the food, I heard my phone buzz. Unknown number. The message made every hair on my body rise. "You should have stopped." My chest tightened. The diner felt suddenly too quiet, too still. Marcus grabbed the phone from me, read it, and looked around at the few people inside. "Call the police," he whispered. I tried. No signal. Marcus tried. Also nothing. "That doesn't make sense," he muttered. "We're not in the middle of nowhere anymore." When the waitress came by, Marcus asked, "Hey, do you guys get service around here?" She pulled out her own phone, frowned, and shook her head. "Weird. I had bars earlier." She walked away, and as she did, I glanced out the diner window. A car was parked across the lot that wasn't there when we arrived. A dark sedan, windows tinted, engine off, no lights. But I felt it, the same chill from the highway. "Marcus," I whispered, "that car wasn't here before?" He looked at it, and his face drained of color. "Okay, we're leaving now." We paid cash on the table and walked out fast. I kept my eyes straight ahead, but the feeling of being watched burned into my neck. We got in the car and locked the doors instantly. Marcus said, "Go, go, go, go." I pulled out of the lot, trying not to look back. I failed. The sedan's headlights flicked on. It didn't peel out or chase aggressively. It just pulled onto the road after us, keeping a steady, equal distance. Every turn we made, it made. Every curve we took, it followed. The same way the man on the road watched us, this car shadowed us with perfect timing. At one point, Marcus cracked his window and listened. That engine, it's the same sound that Guy's voice drowned out. I didn't know what that meant, but every instinct told me not to stop again. Not until we were somewhere public, somewhere bright, somewhere with witnesses. After maybe 10 miles, we saw signs for a bigger town, streetlights, gas stations, traffic. The second we reached an intersection with more cars around, the sedan suddenly turned off into a side street without signaling. No hesitation, no slowdown. It just disappeared into the darkness like it was never following us at all. We pulled into a busy gas station and finally got service. Marcus called the police. I sat in the car shaking, replaying that voice in my head saying my name like it belonged to him. We told the officers everything. The hitchhiker, the text, the car. They took it seriously, but admitted they couldn't do much without more details. The number that texted me wasn't traceable. It wasn't even a real number when they tried calling it. One of the cops said something I've never forgotten. "People move in strange ways out here at night. If someone knows your name without reason, they've been watching longer than you realized." He meant it literally. I felt it metaphorically. Either way, something about that night didn't belong to the world I understood. For months, I avoided late-night drives completely. I blocked the number even though it didn't exist. But none of that stopped the feeling that whoever, or whatever, I saw on that highway wasn't finished when we drove by. They wanted me to stop. And the fact I didn't might be the only reason I'm still here. We were driving through Utah when the GPS suddenly rerouted us onto a long, narrow service road cutting through the desert. It wasn't unusual. Storms had knocked out parts of the highway earlier in the day, so traffic apps had been glitchy. Me, my cousin Jay, and my friend Lila were heading home from a weekend trip, and by the time the sun set, the sky was covered in thick clouds that blocked out everything: stars, moon, even the horizon. The darkness out there didn't feel normal. It felt heavy, almost physical. About 20 minutes onto the service road, the world behind us disappeared completely. No towns, no headlights, no signs, just endless desert, swallowed in black. Jay leaned forward. "Dude, do you notice how there's nothing out here? Not even street markers?" He was right. No reflective posts, no road paint, not even fencing, just a narrow strip of cracked pavement breaking through the sand. "It's fine," Lila said, though her voice didn't sound convinced. "GPS says it reconnects to the main route in 13 miles. But around mile 3, something appeared in the distance. At first, I thought it was a building, a dark shape sitting off to the right side of the road. But as we got closer, we realized it wasn't a building at all. It was a truck, a massive old freight truck, the kind you'd see in movies from the 70s, rusted, sun-bleached, abandoned. The cab was tilted slightly like one of the tires had gone flat decades ago. The trailer doors were wide open, revealing only darkness. We slowed down without meaning to. "Why would that be out here?" Lila whispered. "There's no reason for a truck to be on this road." Before anyone could answer, Jay said, "There's someone standing next to it." I didn't see them at first. The clouds were so thick the world was practically ink. But when the headlights swept across the side of the trailer, I saw a shape. Someone was standing there, not facing us, facing the open trailer. I felt an instant chill travel up my spine. We passed slowly. The figure didn't move, not an inch, just stood there, staring into the empty trailer as if waiting for something to climb out. As soon as we were a few yards past them, Jay whispered, "What were they looking at? Why stand like that?" I didn't know. None of us did. But a pit formed in my stomach that didn't go away. We drove another couple miles in silence, the road narrowing until it barely fit our car. The GPS showed our route as a thin, gray line with nothing around it. No buildings, no towns, no alternate roads. The car felt smaller in that silence. I kept glancing at the mirrors, expecting that abandoned truck to somehow be behind us. The idea was stupid, impossible, but the desert does something to your mind when all you can hear is the low hum of your own engine. Around mile 8, the GPS suddenly froze. Then the entire screen went black. "What the?" Lila said, tapping it. "It won't turn back on." We tried our phones. No service, no maps loading, nothing. "Keep going straight," Jay said. "There's nowhere else to go." 5 minutes later, something flickered in the corner of my eye. Headlights, not ours, behind us, a pair of yellowish lights bouncing over the uneven road, far back but closing in. "Is that a car?" Lila asked, voice shaking. Jay squinted through the rear window. "No, that's not a car. That looks like..." He didn't finish. I didn't need him to. The headlights were too high off the ground, too wide apart, too dim and uneven. It was the freight truck, the same one that was rotting in the desert minutes ago. "That's impossible," Lila whispered. We passed it. I pressed the gas, not too fast. The road was too narrow, but enough to put distance between us and whatever was behind us. For a moment, it worked. But then the headlights behind us shifted. The truck wasn't following the road. It was cutting across the desert, bumping and bouncing over sand and rock like the uneven ground didn't matter. "Go!" Jay yelled. "Drive!" The truck veered back toward the road ahead of us, as if trying to intercept our path. I floored it. The car shook violently on the uneven pavement. The headlights of the truck grew larger in the side window, angling in from our right. "Dude!" Jay shouted. "It's gonna..." Before he could finish, the truck swerved back, missing us by just a few yards. The sound of its engine roared through the desert, deep, old, guttural, like metal grinding against metal. We kept driving until I saw something ahead, a small, flickering light, a utility building, maybe a maintenance shed for the service road, and beside it, another road, a paved one, a real one. I didn't even think. I turned sharply and sped toward it. The truck didn't follow this time. It kept barreling forward on the service road, headlights sweeping across the desert like it was searching for something. Then, without warning, its lights turned off, and the desert went silent again. We reached the paved road in seconds and didn't slow down for 10 straight miles. Eventually, we got enough service to load maps again. When I looked behind us, there was nothing on the service road except darkness. We reported it to a highway patrol station hours later. The officer looked at us strangely and said that road closed years ago because the ground beneath it kept collapsing. "The only thing out there," he said, "is old wreckage they never bothered to move." Jay asked if anyone had reported a truck like the one we saw. The officer shook his head. "They cleared all the freight vehicles from that area last decade. There shouldn't be anything like that out there." He paused, then added quietly, "And nobody should be walking out there at night." We didn't argue. We didn't tell him the part about the truck following us, or how fast it moved across the desert, or the person standing beside it staring into the empty trailer. Some things don't need an explanation. Some things are better left unspoken. We took the long route home after that. Highways, gas stations, crowds, anything with people and light. And sometimes, when I try to sleep, I keep seeing that figure standing perfectly still beside the trailer, as if something inside was whispering for them to keep watching the dark. We stopped at that motel late on a Thursday night. The kind of place that looks fine from the highway, but feels like it hasn't been cleaned properly in decades. I was driving cross-country alone, the plan being a quick stop to sleep before hitting the road early in the morning. The office clerk barely looked up when I checked in, handed me the key and said something about the Wi-Fi being spotty upstairs. Perfect. Just what I needed. Room 12. The door squeaked when I opened it. The hallway smelled faintly of mildew and air freshener, a mix that set my nerves on edge instantly. The room itself was worse. The carpet was threadbare, the furniture mismatched, and the window looked out over a dimly lit parking lot. Nothing about it felt welcoming, but I was too tired to care. I showered quickly, tried to shake off the long drive, and crawled into bed. My body wanted sleep, but my mind refused. Every creak from the old plumbing sounded like footsteps in the hall. The hum of the air conditioner wasn't comforting. It felt like it was hiding something, like static in a radio when someone's whispering on the other end. Around 3 a.m., I woke to a soft tapping. At first, I thought it was the pipes. The hotel was old. That was normal. But it didn't stop. Tap, tap, tap. Slow, rhythmic, deliberate. I sat up in bed, heart hammering. The sound wasn't coming from the walls next to the bathroom or the window. It was coming from behind the headboard, the wall directly behind my bed. I held my breath. Tap, tap, tap. It wasn't random. Whoever it was knew the rhythm of sleep, knew I would notice, but also hoped I'd convince myself it was nothing. My pulse was racing. I reached for the lamp. Every nerve in my body screamed to leave, but I was frozen, trapped between fear and the stupid curiosity of trying to figure out what the hell was going on. Then, it stopped. Silence so heavy I could hear my own heartbeat. I lay there, sweating, waiting, until a faint noise drew my attention. A soft scrape from beneath the bed? I couldn't tell. It wasn't enough to make a clear shape. It was just movement, slow, measured, not random. My hand hovered over the phone. Should I call the front desk? Should I run? Both options felt wrong. Eventually, the tapping started again, not on the wall, not on the floor, from the ceiling directly above my bed. A faint scratching, like someone dragging their fingers over the crawl space above. Whoever or whatever was up there had been waiting, patient, silent, until I was alone. I stayed perfectly still, thinking maybe if I ignored it, it would stop. That thought lasted less than 10 seconds. The tapping became a slow, sliding knock, deliberate, close enough that I could almost feel the vibrations. My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. My mind raced through every possibility. Someone hiding in the room? Someone entering from the vents? No, impossible. But everything felt wrong. Everything. About this place, this night, was wrong. By the first hint of light filtering through the thin curtains, I was dressed, grabbing my bag, not looking around, and heading for the door. I didn't even lock it. I didn't care. I left the motel room the way I would leave a burning building, fast, panicked, not daring to glance back. At the front desk, the clerk asked if everything was okay. I laughed nervously, said I just couldn't sleep, and didn't ask for a receipt. I didn't want another second there than necessary. Weeks later, I read the local news. Police had investigated room 12, the very room I stayed in. Someone had been living in the crawl space above the ceiling for days. They had been entering rooms through the vents at night. The authorities didn't know how long they'd been there, only that no one had noticed. The person was arrested eventually, but there were reports of them sneaking into other motels before. Unknown locations, unknown victims. I never stayed at a roadside motel alone after that. Even now, I drive straight through if I'm on a long trip. I never check in late. I never think the lights in the hallway or the hum of an old air conditioner mean safety. Because the truth is simple, no matter how normal a place looks, someone could be watching, waiting, and the second you close your eyes, they're already inside.